Christmas Day, a wonderful time of year filled with love and decorations adorning every corner. Families gathered together, singing and rejoicing in the festivities. This was the usual way everyone celebrated the season. However, on this particular Christmas, it turned into a nightmare that James could never have imagined. As James was purchasing ammunition from a store, he got uncomfortable when he noticed police vehicles pulling up in front of the establishment. The officers approached James, making him bewildered and uncertain about the situation. He held the bag of bullets he had now purchased as the policemen stood blocking his path. In another part of town, a man and his wife paid a visit to a house. They had been out hunting nearby and wanted to share some of the game they had captured. As they reached the porch of the house, their steps came to an abrupt halt. Their eyes widened in terror at the sight before them, a trail of blood leading into the house. Filled with fear, the man instructed his wife to stay put while he cautiously approached the door to investigate. Upon opening it, he was confronted with an unimaginably gruesome scene that caused him to double over and vomit. James, a 19-year-old, lived with his parents and siblings, a large family of 8. He was the eldest of 7 children, having lost one of his brothers to pneumonia a few years prior. Their family belonged to the middle class and earned their livelihood as tobacco farmers. James's father, Davis, had moved the family to the countryside where his brothers resided, initially farming on rented land, but starting their own farm after saving up enough money. It was a collective effort, and they worked tirelessly to make it a prosperous venture. Since tobacco had medicinal uses and cigarettes were in demand, they enjoyed a decent income that allowed them to afford daily meals, although they were not considered wealthy. In the evenings, Davis, his wife Manring, James, and his younger sister Mary would come together to renovate the farmhouse. As he removed rotten timbers during one evening's renovation work, Davis accidentally struck himself in the forehead with an axe, causing him to lose consciousness. Luckily, James and Mary reacted swiftly, attending to their injured father and rushing him to the hospital. The doctor managed to save Davis's life, but it seemed as though a part of him had died that day. Following the accident, neighbors and family members noticed a significant change in his demeanor and personality. Davis silently battled his inner demons, keeping them hidden from his family. He was skilled in the art of secrecy, often lost in his thoughts, and rarely shared much with his loved ones. Occasionally, James and his father would embark on hunting trips together. During these outings, James learned the art of shooting and hunting game from his father. They shared a close bond, and Davis took great pride in his son, viewing him as his heir. However, James remained oblivious to the immense pressure his father carried. Little did he know what Santa had in store for them this Christmas. The joyful season had arrived, and Christmas Day was fast approaching. Davis called for a family meeting, announcing with a smile, "We're going shopping." This declaration was highly unusual, but it brought an unexpected wave of delight to the family. May, Jam, and Ray, the 4th, 5th, and 6th children, respectively, rejoiced with excitement, running around and screaming. Carrie, the 3rd child, attempted to act mature like her older sister, Mary, but her face couldn't hide the joy she felt. Mainring, rocking their 4-month-old baby Love, smiled warmly. James, however, couldn't comprehend the sudden surprise. As someone involved in the family's farming endeavors, he knew their income wasn't substantial enough for a shopping spree. Nevertheless, he believed that something good must have happened, and he saw no harm in enjoying the holiday season. And so, the family dressed up, piled into their truck, and drove to a town located miles away. They arrived at a mall, where Davis instructed his family to disregard price tags and choose whatever they desired. The sight was even more astounding for the ecstatic family members who scattered throughout the mall, eagerly picking out and trying on new clothes. The men and boys selected fine suits, while the women and girls adorned themselves in beautiful gowns. Without hesitation, Davis settled the bill. Mannering couldn't help but wonder, where did this sudden influx of money come from? Nevertheless, she chose not to question her husband, assuming that he must have made an incredibly successful sale. She brushed aside any thoughts of him engaging in anything illegal. After their extravagant shopping spree, Davis had yet another surprise in store for Christmas. They were going to a studio to have a family portrait taken. Mannering couldn't help but express her concern about the expense, especially after the amount they had just spent on clothes. With a reassuring smile, Davis replied, "It's fine, my dear. I'm fine, my dear." And so they drove to the studio and posed together as a family, capturing the moment in a portrait. The day had come to a close, and the family had enjoyed their time together. However, what awaited them was far more ominous and sinister than they could ever imagine. Christmas morning arrived, and Mary woke up with the desire to bake a cake for the family. She possessed great culinary skills, and everyone eagerly anticipated savoring her delectable creation. Meanwhile, Davis called James and informed him that they would be going hunting. James happily agreed, as he cherished these hunting excursions with his father. Together, they embarked on their hunting expedition accompanied by their 2 dogs. They aimed at squirrels, birds, and deer, but unfortunately missed many of their shots. Davis, shooting without careful aim, quickly depleted their ammunition. The day was still young, and so Davis handed James some money and instructed him to purchase more ammunition so they could continue their hunt. Reluctantly, James left to run the errand, unable to disobey his father's wishes. While James was away, Davis surreptitiously returned to the farm, seeking solace within the confines of his barn. He yearned for some solitary time, or did he? In one corner, he uncovered a box containing hidden ammunition for his shotgun. The delightful scent of the cake permeated the house, catching Mannering's attention as she peeled potatoes on the porch. A smile graced her face as she marveled at her daughter's talent in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Carrie and May grew bored at home and decided to pay a visit to their uncle and aunt. Frustrated by the prolonged wait for the cake, they'd already bathed and dressed up. They informed their mother of their plans and headed out of the house. They passed the entrance of the barn, which was a distance from their main house. As they walked happily, eager to meet their cousins, Carrie was pushed hard by a powerful force, just as a sound of a gunshot echoed. It happened so fast, and the sharp noise had shocked May. May looked in shock at the body of her big sister spasm as blood flowed out endlessly. She looked behind in horror and saw her father, Davis, holding the smoky shotgun. Before she could comprehend what was happening, Davis shuddered, his expression stone cold. There was no going back now. Davis's hands began to shake, but he held his cold expression. It was almost like he had been possessed. He wanted to ensure they were dead, but so as not to alarm the rest of his family and waste ammunition, he used the handle of the 12-gauge shotgun to beat the head of his daughters continuously, ignoring the blood spilling on him. When he was done, he dragged both bodies into the barn, put a rock under their head like a pillow, and crossed their arms. He left the barn and shut the door. His face and clothes were stained with blood, but he didn't try to clean or hide it. With his shotgun, he walked towards the main building. Mannering had ignored the gunshot, believing it was just the men hunting. She kept peeling the potatoes, but when she looked up again, she saw her husband covered in blood as he walked towards her. She got up, worried, and wanted to go check up on him, but as she did, Davis shot her. This time, the children heard and saw it. Mary had completed the cake and was admiring her masterpiece. She was on her way to call everyone when she saw her father shoot her mother. She screamed, the shock holding her in place for a few seconds. As Davis came closer and reloaded his gun, Mary ran but was shot down in front of the fireplace. Jam and Ray tried to find a hiding place, But Jam couldn't hide well enough. He was found and shot. Ray was much smaller and hid well in fear and confusion, but it wasn't good enough. Davis found him and dragged him out. Ray begged his father to forgive him, even though he didn't know what he did. But it fell on deaf ears as Davis pointed the gun at his 2-year-old and... The noise had made Baby Lau cry out from his cradle. Davis walked to his baby, insanity expressed all over his face. He held his shotgun tightly and used the butt of the gun to strike the baby over and over again, even after the crying had stopped. After he was done, he let out a loud cry, then regained composure. The work was not done. He dragged the bodies of his wife and kids together, and just like he did earlier with May and Carrie, he folded their arms and put a rock under their heads. Then he went out, shutting the door behind him, and walked into the woods where he waited, pacing around a tree over and over. While Davis was deep in the woods, one of his brothers, Mar, and his wife happened to pass by. They had been hunting nearby and intended to extend greetings to the family while sharing some of the game they had caught. As Mar opened the door to the house, he was met with a horrifying sight. The floor was littered with the lifeless bodies of Manring, Mary, Ray, Jam, and even baby Lou, their hands crossed in death. Overwhelmed by the gruesome scene, Mar couldn't hold back his nausea and promptly vomited. He rushed back to his worried wife and urgently attempted to contact the police. Concerned for the safety of his brother and James, as their bodies were not among the deceased, Mar feared that they might still be in danger. Never would he have suspected that his own brother could commit such a heinous act. The police were swiftly notified, and upon their arrival, they encountered James at the ammunition store. They informed him of the tragedy that had unfolded. The news was unfathomable to James. They escorted him back to the house where a small crowd had gathered, its size gradually increasing as more people became drawn to the commotion. James pushed through the crowd, his trembling body compelled to witness the horrifying scene. The joyous holiday season had transformed into a nightmare, shattering any semblance of celebration. From the depths of the woods, Davis heard the wailing sirens, signaling that his actions had been discovered. Consumed by guilt and unable to bear the thought of facing punishment for his crimes, he made a devastating decision. A single gunshot echoed through the air, causing panic among those present. Some individuals fled, fearing that the killer was targeting them. However, James, Mar, and the police were drawn towards the source of the sound. There, they discovered Davis's lifeless body. In his pocket, they found letters addressed to his parents, detailing the horrific act he had committed, along with a crumpled note bearing the words, "Blame nobody but I." It remained a mystery to everyone. The motive behind Davis's actions eluded comprehension. The reason for sparing his son remained unknown. Closure proved elusive, with only unverified rumors circulating among the community. James bore the weight of the tragedy for years, grappling with conflicting emotions. He wrestled with gratitude for being the sole survivor and guilt for his survival. However, his uncles and aunts provided unwavering support, standing by his side during his darkest moments. Eventually, he managed to rebuild his life, marrying and raising 4 children, finding moments of happiness. Yet, tragedy would strike again, as James lost his life in a fatal motor accident at the young age of 35. Please subscribe. Have a wonderful new year ahead.